I'm John, and I'm John, and I'm a third-year student here at Footprint, and I have been writing for Footprint for all 3 of my years at the university, so it's a very familiar ground for me. Currently, I am studying psychology research specialist with an English minor, and of course, English minor exposes me to a lot of literary devices, writers, literary styles, which are very helpful to me as an editor. And so, in the past, I have been an assistant English editor, both in terms of an official position and also unofficially with Cassie, who was an absolute joy to work with. So thank you for that. And so it's been a lot of fun. It's been a really good experience. Both writing and editing are really important parts of who I am. I find both to be incredibly enjoyable, and so I hope to continue this year working with the new English editorial board, working with the other assistant English editor, working with English writers, and also the Chinese board as well. I'm hoping to build a very cooperative relationship with everybody on the Footprint, and I hope that this is going to be the beginning of a very good working relationship between us. So vote for me, Jonathan Ding, as your assistant English editor. Thank you.
Very good.
Go ahead. His statement basically answered all the questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so how are you planning to attract more members to the English editorial club?
Okay, so that's a very good question, and I think the first thing that we have to do is to make clear that we're trying to attract people within the newspaper itself. What I've noticed is that some of the other newspapers on campus, they have this section that basically says recruitment, and we're looking for an article of this, say, category. And I'm proposing something similar to that, but I'm proposing something a little bit more, where we say, recruitment, we're looking for an article of this length, of this size, and please submit it, and basically if it's of sufficient quality, then we'll publish it. And I think basically by getting that message out, that we're actually trying to attract writers, that no matter whether you're good or bad, no matter what you want to write about, as long as you're able to write it, and it's of a sufficient quality, then we'll put it in the paper. And I think by giving that message out and sort of promoting that strongly, I would argue, would be able to attract, I would say, the highest caliber of writing on campus and both within the editorial board itself.
Okay, so you're a very experienced Footprint member and you have been very involved. Do you have any plan to pass on your knowledge and experience to our executive for the next year or even for the next generation?
Next generation, that's very interesting. I think what's important is that I think something that's been very important to me is that I look for content of an article and not really for what the content of the article in terms of its quality, but not in terms of its, say, topic, not in terms of its, say, format. And so I think what's something that I would really pass along is to encourage creative ways of expression, both in terms of the format itself, but in terms of the topic as well. And so I think by sort of promoting that, we'll be able to get a much more diverse footprint out, and we'll be able to attract many more diverse voices from the campus to sort of be really like a mosaic of expressions, as opposed to say, like a magazine of literary pieces or a magazine of, some with zapji or like that. So it's just more diversity and better. I would say it's more fun to read diversity than it is to read, pages and pages of text. And I think that's something that I would like to pass along to everybody in the future generation or whatever.
If you're aware of the situation, this year we have 2 assistant English editors. How would you expect to distribute the workload between you or the other candidates?
Right, so I have actually never really talked to you properly, but I think it's very important, especially in this sort of situation, to communicate. And so without really knowing who my partner is going to be, it's impossible for me to say how I'm going to do it. But I think as I mentioned, it's very important to sort of communicate between the two. And it seems that we're all here for the best of the paper, and so I'm sure that we'll be able to work something out. In terms of specifics, I don't know who she is like. I don't know what she likes doing. I don't know what her skills are. And she has no idea who I am. And so I think it would be irresponsible for me to actually give an answer without knowing basically anything about the other person. So it depends on who she's like. And I'm sure it's going to be fun to work with her. That being said, it takes a bit of practice to get this down, and I'm very looking forward to getting into a working relationship with my partner in terms of assistant English editorship.
That's all.
My question. You have a lot of experience in writing and editing, so I'm just wondering, why did you apply for the English editor position?
Right, and it's a very good question, and I think I just have to say that I'm not sure if I'm going to be here next year, and so I'm not comfortable taking on that position. As some of you might know, I'm applying to medical school, and chances of me getting in there's a chance of me getting in, and so I don't want to sort of take the position and then sort of leave it vacant. I think that's a very irresponsible thing to do.
You are in your third year or fourth year?
Third year,
Okay, so you are applying for med school.
in my third year.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And so, I don't want to run and then sort of like lead an English section and suddenly find out that, I will leave in footprint, and I think it would be best to sort of run for assistant because, it's a better choice of action for me at this point, so.
So, well, Jen is also applying for the assistant position, and since you've been editing for 2 years now, do you have anything to say to her, like recommendations?
I would say we get very high quality articles here at Footprint, so have lots of fun editing, read it, and it's going to be a very, very positive experience, and I really look forward to working with you next year, so it'll be good.
You heard the EXC candidate just said that she don't believe you guys are equal. Yeah, so she only wants to have 1/3 of the content in English. What do you think about that? Like, do you want to have a half and half, or what is
And
your
what is your opinion in general?
yeah? What's your opinion in general?
So I think based on the question that I asked her, you can tell that I don't agree with her 1/3 capping policy.
Yeah.
And so it'll be fun working with her next year, and I'm sure it'll be fun to convince her that she is actually that there is room to maneuver that is sort of beyond the black and white 1/3 cap. But that being said, I think it should be really a matter of the principle really should be the quality of the articles as opposed to what language it is in. And as I mentioned, instead of say putting together a literary journal, what you're looking for is really the best quality of article as opposed to whether it is written in Ontario versus Quebec or maritime provinces or whatever. They do that, but that being said, the focus is on quality, and so I think the same thing needs to go for Footprint. So we need to scrutinize our articles both in terms of Chinese and in terms of English, and we need to pull them together to pick out the best articles to put within the newspaper itself. And I think, that being said, if it's 1/3 of English, then it's 1/3 of English. If it's 1/4, if it's 1/6, then if it's 1/6, then obviously the English editors need to be doing more promotional work. But if it's say a half or if it's like 1/4, then I'm really up to that. And I think it really should be quality driven as opposed to language dividing, because I think we're way past that stage.
This is my last question. I heard there's one dedicated English member told me that she feel the English editorial is so isolated from all other parts in Footprint. What is your solution to that?
That's my solution. So I think we're actually doing a lot better than we used to, and that sort of depends on when she sort of started talking to you. But of course, this year we're a lot more integrated. We're sort of together in sort of the editorial meetings. We're together, in terms of our own sort of group, and that we have sort of our own emailing system. We sort of have our own system built up. And so I think what we really need to do is to continue sort of this integration between the two editorial boards. And I think something that we also really need to consider is just the sort of events that we're putting out. And it's very important to sort of attract both Chinese people and sort of English people to our social events. And I think in the past the social events have been predominantly Chinese. And so I think the English English assistant editors will be able to do a bit of promotional work in terms of getting the sort of integration of Footprint as a whole, as opposed to say like a predominantly Chinese fraction of social events versus English or like that sort of division. So I think it's a matter of integration, and it's a matter of just working together and telling them that they are part of the Footprint. And now that we're an editorial board, that will be much easier to do. It would be even easier if there wasn't like a 1/3 cap on how much English papers can contribute. But that's sort of something that I guess will work out over the summer with the other person.
Do you have other questions from the committee?
One question. What is your opinion of what Jacqueline said about weekly meeting? Oh, actually, then I also have this idea of weekly meeting.
Yeah, what's Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's a very noble plan. I think for any new speaker, it's best to have as many meetings as possible because the more meetings we have, the more time we're able to get, the more things we're able to get done.
That's right.
That being said, we are in a university. We have our own schedules. We have midterms, tests, exams, and it's not always possible to sort of meet up, especially with a reasonable size attendance to discuss this, or even to discuss say projects or essays or anything, even your personal things. So I think it's a very good plan, but it's also very hard to implement, and it's also very I would say demoralizing if people don't show up to your editorial meetings because when you tell them if it's important versus not. And so I think in this case, it might be good to have, say, office hours like Charles used to do, where people are encouraged to come in and discuss the paper. But in terms of having official meetings, I think it's a little bit too much, and I think it's important to sort of tell people what's important to go to and what's not, and having weekly meetings really loses that differentiation, and so I'm not supportive of that idea for those reasons.
I just want to put it out there that my opinion of this whole matter is it's like the quality of newspaper, the quality rather than quality of quantity, right? So I think it's better that we have meeting as often as needed, not weekly or bi-weekly or whatever. If we're doing our job, if we're editing our articles on time, then what's the point of having a meeting if everybody already handed in the article?
Right.
Just want to put it out there. Feel free to object.
Any questions?
可以用
还可以用中文
語言。
Okay. Yeah.
可以用中文答嘅。
As being a Chinese Canadian student on the campus, your status is pretty unique. You can speak Chinese and speak fluent English between the Chinese people, right? What is the charm? I was wondering what is the main charm of Footprint that attract you want to be one of the assistant editor? You
So
guys have
so-
lots of choices for newspaper, magazine, and other things else. Yeah.
So what attracts me to Footprint in terms of... Okay, so I think the first thing that I would have to say is familiarity. I've been here for 3 years, and UT, Chinese, or whatever they're called, they don't have the same sort of familiar feeling that I have. If I went there, I wouldn't know anybody. And frankly, they don't even have an English section, so I'm very critical of that. So of course, my English is also another reason that I'm here, and I think it's really great that we have an English board and a Chinese board because it's sort of it's able to integrate opinions together. Whereas if I started talking to say an actuarial scientist who is writing for UD Chinese, I'm not sure how much communication we'll actually be able to get through, especially since我的国语我可以说，但是我不是可以说得很好。So that being said, communication and working with familiar people and having a newspaper that I really agree with, that I really identify with, those are very powerful draws to me. Those are very powerful reasons that draw me to Footprint. Am I speaking too fast, by the way?
It's okay. I talk that fast all the time, so I like that.
Any questions from the floor? That's it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
As we don't have English language next year, or probably won't, and are you okay to take up more responsibility than you do it this year?
Well, I think the
Because
point...
you're going to the med school, hopefully.
Well, actually, if I'm going to med school, then I'm afraid that my partner will have to take up the whole mantle because I basically won't be here. But in terms of if I stay here, then definitely yes. Without an editor, then I'm sure we'll be able to work something out in terms of cooperation and in terms of what extra roles can we take on to make this the smoothest year possible without sort of compromising the quality of the work that we're able to give. So
So the math school is not real.
Huh?
You're not doing the math school, right?
No. He said if he's going to med school, he wants to be.
So it's not real.
I don't know if the acceptances come out in May, so I can't tell you whether I'll be here at U of T until I sort of actually hear back from them. And chances are if I get accepted to U of T, then I might stay here on campus, and so that could be a way that we could continue. But that being said, there's a lot of uncertainty within the whole system, and so I sort of I can contribute, I can dedicate myself to this position as an assistant, but I'm uncomfortable dedicating myself to the bigger position. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if you are accepted to med school, then you won't like share like equally, like we will share the word equally.
Oh no, if I'm on campus, then definitely we're going to be sharing. And so, if, say I'm accepted and I accept the U of T Medical School on campus, then of course, then I'll be continuing. But whereas if I'm accepted to say the University of UBC, then I won't be here at all. And so then, then I'm sorry, but you would have to. You would be physically the person in charge of the English section, and there wouldn't be.
I'm actually applying to law school next year as well. But the point is like, if you're not here, then should we like hire more people? Like should we invite more people?
That is the choice you will take after you elected, and after everything turns out, and we have to determine on that situation. Yeah, it depends on the situation.
But I definitely will let you know as soon as I find out. And I haven't actually decided whether I'm gonna accept the offer even if it comes, because my psychology prof is trying to get me to go into grad school instead, and so it's something that I'm struggling with as well. And so I thank you for your patience, I guess, and thank you for.
Good
Well,
luck with that. We have very smart people in our board.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you guys.
I think that's it. If we have any question, we go to Facebook or YouTube. We have to go. Sorry, you have class, right?
6.
Oh yeah. So
Run.
I want to